Welcome everybody to this session on the future of SAP Fiori applications. So I'm glad that I can be here today to talk a bit about what it is that's been keeping us busy and what we want to share with you. So you know what's coming up next, what's the technology, how is it advancing, how does it affect applications, and what's in it for you. We've been in technology and design at SAP, we've been pretty busy working on something that you've all seen in the keynote of Jürgen Müller on Tuesday morning. And that's the topic of SAP Fiori 3. And to give you a bit of perspective and context of why that is so important, SAP Fiori 3 is not just innovating the design, evolving the design concepts of SAP Fiori 2, but one of the most important principles of SAP Fiori 3 is that of UX consistency. If you look at the situation of SAP's UIs today, SAP Fiori 2 was available for a number of platforms and products, but many of the companies that SAP has acquired over the course of the past 10 years or even more, SuccessFactors, Ariba, Concur, Fieldglass, Qualtrics lately, they're not using the same design, they're not using the same technology as, for example, SAP S/4HANA. So it was a major challenge to get together with the design experts from these units, with the technology folks, and to come up with a harmonized design, a consistent UX for the Intelligent Enterprise Suite. Throughout this work, we encountered certain situations. Jürgen showed it also in his keynote, a listing of shell header bars, for example, that was depicting how it looks like across all of the different products. And somehow the designers had to sit together and say, okay, what is really our vision of a design that can be used across all of the different solutions? And it wasn't just about, obviously, these sort of elements. It was simple things like colors, like the fonts, the icons that are being used, the placement of actions on the screen. So where do you save an object or cancel a certain processing, right? All of this had to be aligned across all of the different departments. So really Fiori 3 is more than just a design update. It's an answer to this problem of UX consistency for everyone. And it's the first time that we have something in place that can really be applied in the future to all of these solutions. Fiori 3 is available now already, so that's important to understand as well. If you're an S/4HANA Cloud customer with 1908, you have access to this design, and with S/4HANA 1909, you get it on-premise. For those of you who are not on these stacks, if you are running a system that uses a Fiori front-end server, version 6.0 comes with Fiori 3 as a design. And something that's important, in case you're wondering what does it mean to upgrade to this new design, Fiori 3 is backwards compatible to Fiori 2. Right? We tried really hard to make sure that the hurdle for you to get it is rather low. That means we did not, like in the migration going from Fiori 1 to Fiori 2, introduce a lot of new assets that you need to integrate into application code. Fiori 3 basically can be applied to applications that already make use of the Fiori 2 functions with no additional investment on your side. So we talk about how all of these different companies we've acquired now had to be aligned in terms of the UI. But if you remember, as part of the keynote, you also saw screens that look a lot different from what you're being used to. The Fiori launchpad with tiles that you use to start applications is something that most of you are familiar with. But in all of the keynotes we saw, the screens look different. There are new parts which are used to integrate data from different systems and visualize this accordingly. And I want to talk a little bit about this part as well. So what we've created is something that we call integration cards. And if you look at the screen in the middle, you notice how you have not simple tiles. They're still on the screen in the bottom, but you now also have more complex screen areas which can show charts, which can show lists and things like that. Right? And the idea was that we looked around in the industry to see what are others doing as well in this space. And Microsoft, for example, is using a similar concept. They work on a data structure that basically describes what such a card should carry as information. So what's the API that's being pulled in, or where's the data being pulled in from, and what's the visualization type, right? Is it a list, is it a chart, is it some other type of card? So we looked at this, we extended it a bit for our direct needs within SAP, and we now have something in place that we can take and, for example, define what the data is, how is it visualized, to put it into the Fiori launchpad. This is what you saw in many of the demos, but it is not restricted to this environment of Fiori launchpad and SAP UI5. In theory, you can also take such a card, the technical definition of a card, and expose it into different environments. Maybe into an environment of such a company, that SuccessFactors, for example, could use this in their environments, but we could also expose it multi-channel, for example, on a mobile device. Render it natively, possibly even on such a platform. So that's really exciting, and that's why it was so apparent if you go back and look at the recording how many times you've seen these integration cards in all of the demos. They really bring the whole concept of Fiori to this level of not just being consistent in terms of design, but also of integrating all of the data from the different solutions into a unified user experience. Being flexible in terms of pulling in data from systems and organizing sort of the display of data on a screen is one thing, but for those of you who don't have this sort of homepage yet with all of the cards and tiles, there's another aspect of flexibility that's important to understand. That's something we're working on. When you are consuming today applications that come from SAP, sometimes the data that's shown in these applications, the positioning of certain screen elements is not exactly what you would like it to be. And that might not be even the end of it. Sometimes you'd like to extend an application, putting really new functionality into something that SAP has initially created. In the past, a typical example was that you would take a SAP GUI based application and you would have a developer modify the code, right? And actually have a modification in your system to achieve the same result. That is costly because you have to have developer resources working on this. What we want to do is we would like to provide a framework where you can, on the different levels of skills, developer, but also a business or a key user, all the way up to an end user, you can modify a screen to a certain degree. So this is an example of UI5 flexibility, very simple one, but it shows you how you can drag and drop basically elements on the screen, put them into a different position. You could hide such fields, you could add new fields to a screen. This is functionality that's available as well today. We took it even further, that nowadays when you want to extend an application, there's a new type of project in SAP Web IDE. It's called the Adaptation Project. In there you have all sorts of tools that let you flexibly change applications and do it in a non-modifying way. That means the modifications you do to your applications are not stored in the application code, but sit next to it. So the original app stays as it is, and it's also lifecycle safe. That means when SAP delivers a new application, those changes can still be applied to even a newer version. So this is going to change the way you use Fiori applications quite dramatically, I think, because there's no more need to always copy or recreate applications from scratch. This is a very powerful tool, UI flexibility, part of the documentation, and something very important for you to know about. Let's dig one level deeper into, let's say, what we do technically to advance Fiori applications. And if we look at SAP UI5, which is the reference implementation of the Fiori design, right? It's a JavaScript rendering framework that we've created for the purpose of running across all device types, being responsive, and so on. This platform drives the Fiori applications. When we talk to customers, but also to internal partners that work with us on creating Fiori applications, one very important topic usually is that of efficiency of development. How easy is it to create a Fiori application, to deploy it, and so on. SAP Fiori Elements is a technology that sits on top of SAP UI5. Right? And takes away the need for you to know web development technologies like that, because what you do in SAP Fiori Elements is you basically think more on the back-end side of the house. Right? You think in terms of data structures, exposing APIs, describing these APIs using metadata and annotations. And Fiori Elements comes with a generic component that interprets this and automatically renders an application for you. The tooling I showed before, the flexibility tooling that we have, then helps to shape the final outcome exactly to your needs. Right? SAP UI5 Visual Editor is such a tool that helps you exactly put all of the visual elements you see on the screen in the right order, for example. It could be columns of a table that you would like to position in a certain way. Efficiency also was limited in the past because we had a fully stateless programming paradigm. And we got the feedback that sometimes back-end applications do for performance reasons and so on have a requirement to be called in a stateful way, so that the state is kept. And this is something that we've also been working on quite a lot, and you see new applications come up now that make use of these back-end technologies, cloud application programming model, but also on the ABAP side of the house there's a similar thing that will provide these stateful UI stacks going forward. For UI5 itself as a foundation technology, we are constantly looking into innovating the code base of UI5. Sometimes we have discussions whether UI5, now being almost 10 years old, is old in a way, but what we try to do all the time is we try to incorporate the latest web technology trends in the code base of UI5. And what we do when we do this is that we keep all of your investments safe. That means applications that were written a few years back still run, with the latest version of UI5. Even though the code base and the features that we've put in have been to a certain degree completely changed. This is a promise we do as the technology provider. And the SAP UI5 teams take great care of making sure that it's fully backwards compatible, everything we do, but continuously evolving the code base as well. Openness doesn't just mean that we put web standard technology in UI5. For us, it also means sharing what we have with you and with everyone at SAP as well. For example, build tools. Something you need to productize an application, to minify it in a certain way so you can deploy it on a server, were not available in the past easily if you are not part of the SAP internal development groups. Outside you had SAP Web IDE as one vehicle where you could do such tasks. Now we said we want to take a much more open approach to the build tooling and general the tooling around UI5. So we've invested into creating Node.js-based standard tooling that's available as an open source project. So if you Google UI5 tooling, you have access to all the things we've done around this space. And what it really enables you is to create Fiori applications now in a totally different manner. Web developers who typically tended to shy away from using standard tools like the SAP Web IDE for personal reasons and preferences can now use their favorite environment of choice. They can use the IDEs that they're being used to. They work on command line interface tools just like they do with any other framework out there in the world, right? So that's something very important for us. As part of a longer evolution project that we did around UI5, where we try to modularize the code base and provide tools to make the performance of applications better, we also took away the rendering part of UI5 in a way that it became decoupled from the rest of the stack. We can now take certain assets and actually make them available in environments that are not even written in SAP UI5. A new standard technology from the web browser platform, it's called Web Components, enables us to provide you with encapsulated functionality as a sort of custom HTML tag. So we can now share the functionality, the enterprise-grade qualities that we have in SAP UI5 controls in a way that they can also be used outside of this ecosystem. And if you think back to what I said about Fiori 3, this problem of sharing the design with all of SAP's product lines, this was one of the approaches we took to say, we already have Fiori designs as a reference implementation available. We cannot have everybody move to UI5 at the same time. Sometimes it simply doesn't work for a number of reasons. But what if we could share some of these technology assets, design, behavior, and so on with them? So UI5 Web Components is such a framework. It's also an open source offering from us. So if you're interested in what exactly this is, please check it out. We have plenty of material out there on the web that describes exactly what we do. One word about this does not mean that SAP UI5 is no more relevant or something for the creation of Fiori applications. Business applications, Fiori applications now and in the future will be written with SAP UI5. Web components are there to share these technology assets with those who cannot move to SAP UI5. So for most of you, everything is okay and you can just continue using SAP UI5 for the development of your applications. I mentioned performance already before because we have invested quite a lot over the course of the last 2 years in bringing you the latest web technology and trends under the hood, right? As I said, in a backwards compatible way. So to speed up the performance of applications. Maybe some highlights into what we've been doing here. We were able to reduce the initial display of content in environments like the FLP, the Fiori launchpad, by almost 50% by using something called progressive loading, which is a means of using the perceived performance that an end user sees in an application. Something like elements coming up really fast in the beginning, and then continuously content is added to the page to create a sort of notion of a much better performance. There are examples out there now in the latest versions of S/4HANA already where you notice this. The launchpad initially displays the header and the background in a much faster way than before, and that really helps to improve performance. We have a lot of content, blog posts and videos out on what exactly you can also do if you want to participate in this journey to modernize your application code base. So if you're interested, please also check it out. UI5 Evolution material, there's plenty of stuff on the web for you to learn about what exactly we did there. For those of you who wonder how you can modernize your code base, because we've done quite a lot, applications do not have to do anything. As I said, everything is kept backwards compatible. But if you would like to move, into the future, use more of these asynchronous, progressive loading kind of concepts, the modernization of the code of your applications has become a lot easier as well, because we've created, again, an open source tooling. It's the UI5 migration tooling. It's a command line tooling that basically lets you take your application code and modernize it. So put in new module structures, change some of the API calls within your code. It helps you greatly on the way to modernizing applications for future use and to benefit from some of the concepts of UI5 Evolution in the future. All right, to sum it up, there are a number of topics that I'd like to stress again once today. Integration, Fiori 3, sharing assets with the rest of SAP's product lines, that's one of the key concerns that we have these days. The intelligent enterprise is what drives the whole thing for us. UX consistency is, for the first time in Fiori 3, really available across all of these different product lines. Data integration, we saw cards, really exciting concept. You see it in all of the keynotes these days, so that's something to watch out for. In the future, this will just grow into the Fiori launchpad, into other products, and become much more of a standard thing that you will notice. We innovate while keeping everything backwards compatible and safe for you. You saw that with the move from Fiori 2 to Fiori 3. That is something fairly simple to reach. UI5 code as well has been renovated in a way that you get the latest in web technology and trends and performance upgrades without worrying about your investments that you've done so far in the application code base. We want to provide the required flexibility for you to take whatever SAP delivers, but also what others do in your companies, and to change and adapt the applications to your liking. And acceleration, of course, we would like all of you to be more efficient in creating application, but also not just creating applications, but having applications that are faster than before, the Fiori launchpad being faster than before, and so on. Those are the key principles. This is what's driving really us from a technology point of view into the future, and nicely defines what I think the future of SAP Fiori apps will be like. We're really excited about all the motion and everything that's happening in this space. I hope I could share a bit of what we do with you today. And with this, I'd like to thank you for your attention. Have a great rest of the day and see you later. Okay, bye-bye.